Katie Razzle. Well, I'm joined now from Leeds by Alyas Karmani, Director of Street UK, which works with young people at risk of sexual violence and also is a Muslim preacher, and from Lancashire by Detective Superintendent Ian Critchley, Lancashire Police's Head of Public Protection. Detective Superintendent, a lot of the cases that we hear about at the moment involve, or seem to involve, groups of predominantly Asian men. Is this a problem that is associated with one community, or does it stretch across everywhere?
No, absolutely stretched across all our communities, both in terms of the victims that are being perpetrated against and those people who are committing these offences. It is right to say that in Lancashire and elsewhere we have found groups of Asian men have been committing exploitation of young people. But it's also right to say that offenders cut across all areas of our communities from all backgrounds, and we are absolutely committed to identifying who they are and stopping children being exploited and abused.
Do you think there is anything specific, Detective Superintendent, about the way it goes on in those Asian communities as compared to other communities? Or do you treat them all the same as well?
No, we are absolutely committed to identifying anybody who's abusing children within Lancashire, and that's why we work very closely with our partners from children's social care, from health and the voluntary sector, to encourage confidence of victims, carers and parents to come forward, however this exploitation takes place. And we're seeing an increased use of the internet, for example, of people grooming. We're seeing people purporting to be boyfriends of young girls, and in some cases young boys, by offering gifts and offering inducements. And we are often seeing groups and gangs acting together to exploit and abuse girls. We are absolutely committed to addressing this issue.
Mr. Karmani, I mean, this has been around in the news and being discussed in public forums now for a little while, for a few years. Do you think the Asian communities where people have been caught, if you like, are getting their heads around this and are prepared to confront it?
I think most definitely. Certainly we at Street, we've been addressing this issue for many years. And I think we've been saying for quite a long time, it's not an issue which is particular to Asian communities. This really cuts across the board. It's an issue around the UK, and we've actually framed it as a young urban male issue. And what we found is certainly where you've got drug supply, criminal gangs, and inevitably you're going to have pimping of girls and sexual abuse of children as well. So it's a pattern that we've known about for decades. Yes, I agree with you. There has been challenges in terms of certain communities, in particular the Pakistani community, actually taking responsibility for the small number of cases within, their particular communities. But increasingly now, there's a generation of individuals who are very committed to actually confronting these issues head-on and actually providing a solution to the problems. I think what we're increasingly recognizing are the risk factors, the individuals who are at risk of this violence, as well as the vulnerable girls as well who need safeguarding. So increasingly, as we become more aware of the issue, we have to be preventative. And certainly at Street, we've been addressing the issue quite head-on in West Yorkshire, in London, in areas where there are large Pakistani Muslim communities as well. And we're using our workshops to actually engage young men from these communities to actually challenge sexual violence across these communities as well. Because a lot of young...
Sorry to interrupt, but what about parents of children and people who might be at risk? I mean, what do you think they need to be doing, and do they need to change their own behaviour or boundaries or rules within the home?
Sorry, could you just repeat that, please?
I was wondering what your view is of parents of children who are potentially vulnerable. Do they need to change the way they are laying down the law, if you like, at home about when you can go out or when you need to be home and all those sorts of things?
No, I totally agree with you. What we do have are young girls who are vulnerable, who are at risk, who don't have the appropriate safeguarding in place. I think Operation Retriever, which is the case in Derby that you mentioned in your report, really highlighted a lot of the failure of a lot of agencies, including the police, social services, and families as well. So families have a significant role in terms of putting the protective factors around their children. And they've got to recognise that there are predatory gangs out there on the street who are so attuned to identifying those young girls who are at risk and then really victimising and manipulating girls, channeling them into sexual violence and into grooming.
Detective Superintendent, what's